Alright, so these little straw pieces didn't work out, so I made some tiny little wedges out of some material that I actually cut from one of these things here. This is actually a composite shim. These are used for shimming during carpentry, like if you're installing a door jamb. And what's nice about them is, unlike wood, they don't split or splinter. And I was able to cut some little pieces out of that. They've got a pretty thin dimension to start with, so at the very end there I was able to cut off a couple little chunks, and I was able to use those as wedges. What's nice about these is that they're solid enough so that they shim out the rollers, but they're not hard like solid steel, so when I push them in I don't have to worry about damaging the metal on the back sides of the shoes or on the rotor itself. And these are working really well, keeping the rollers pushed out, so now I can make my measurement with my micrometer more accurately. So after playing around with the measurements a couple of times, I realized that I have to take the measurement at the very top of the rollers, because the shims at the top are pushing out at the top, but since they're not pushing down the whole length of the roller out, there's actually almost like a tapering effect. Whereas if I lower the micrometer closer to the head, the dimension is smaller. So I realize it's not the perfect situation, but it's all I can go with at this point. So I decide that I'm just going to make sure that I've got that measurement within 1.5 thousandths of the spec, which was the 1.980, and go with that. Keep our fingers crossed. Okay, here I'm talking about getting ready to install a cam ring, and the direction that the cam ring needs to go on for clockwise rotation. So I'm talking about how the front of the pump going towards the front of the engine is actually the end that the is facing up right here in the photograph. So looking down at it, clockwise rotation of the rotor would be clockwise rotation for the pump, because on the Standardine pumps, rotation is determined from looking at the front of the pump. So when I want to reinstall a cam ring, I want to make sure I install it with the arrow facing this way, which would be clockwise rotation. Because if I flip it over, you'll see on the other side that there's another arrow which points counterclockwise. That's so that the cam ring can be installed either way depending on the application needed. If you inadvertently were to put this in backwards, in other words, if I were to put this in, say, with the counterclockwise rotation setting, and my pump is supposed to be turning clockwise, what would happen is you get a no fuel situation. So if you know you put everything else together correctly and you're not getting any fuel delivery at the injectors, you might want to suspect that you inadvertently put this ring in backwards. I also use this product called Blow Off, which is actually for precision electronic components, but I use that to clean off any dust that might be present on the cam ring before I decided to install it. And what this product basically is it's a can of like compressed air, but it's got a propellant present that's similar to Freon. Now I just take a quick second to talk about again how this actually works. If I move the rollers out manually, simulating them being pushed out by fuel pressure from the transfer pump, then as the rotor rotates and those rollers get into the narrower sections of the cam ring, they push in those two little pistons and they compress that fuel in there, and they're able to develop a very large amount of pressure. Now I'm preparing to install the delivery valve spring, and the delivery valve stop. And I talked briefly again about how we discarded the original delivery valve stop during disassembly as advised in the manual. And we ordered a brand new delivery valve stop, which we're going to install. And also I talk about how I had read that if you reuse a worn delivery valve stop, one of the symptoms you might have is low fuel pressure at slow cranking speeds, which can translate to a hard starting situation. I also talk about how the reason why I want to do this installation of the delivery valve at this point before I go any further is because I remember that during disassembly, when I needed to get the little stop out, I was able to hold onto the two flat sides of the rotor with a wrench to give me a way to hold onto the rotor to remove that little stop. So I also want to be able to hold onto that for reassembly. And then I'm going to need to find the correct torque specification for that little stop. Okay, so here I just removed the delivery valve from the fluid bath, and I'm looking at the valve, and you can see that on the back of the valve there's actually a little area that clearly is where the spring engages. It's almost like a little pin sticking out that the spring's going to sit on top of. And then the other end of the valve, it's actually almost got like a little bit of a bevel to it. So next I remove the delivery valve spring from the fluid bath, and that engages the little pin shaped area on the back of the delivery valve. And then I insert that, and then I get my new delivery valve stop. I'm going to get it out of the bag, and once I get it out of the bag, I give it a quick little dip in the fluid, and then that gets installed, and that long pin goes into the spring, and then I insert it in and gently give it a little bit of a jiggle, and that gets it to slide all the way into position. Now I need to insert the little screw, little set screw that holds it in. It's got an Allen head on it. One thing that's nice is it's the same size Allen head screw as the leaf spring or max fuel adjustment. So now I've got my little Allen wrench, and the problem I run into almost immediately is that little Allen head plug that I'm trying to screw in, the Allen wrench can slide right through it. So if I try and push down on the spring to get the threads to grab, it just keeps sliding down and sliding down. So after trying that a couple of times, I realize I've got to come up with something better. So I decided to try and put tape around the wrench.